glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay. So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 16, text number 16.
It's up on the board.
Rishayuchu Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas Tavadeva Chikirshitam Krito me nugrahascheti Yad adhyaksha prabhashase Rishaya uchu Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas Tavadeva Chikirshitam Krito me nugrahascheti Yadadhyaksha prabhasase Vishaya uchu Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas Tavadeva Chikirshitam Gitome nugrahascheti Yadadhyaksha prabhashase Rishaya uchu Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas Avadeva Chikirshitam Kritome nugrahascheti Yadabhyasya vasase Rishaya uchu Avayam Bhagavan Vidmas Avadeva Chikirshitam Kitome nugrahascheti Yadadhyaksha prabhashase Rishaya, the sages, Uchu, said, Na, not, Vayam, we, Bhagavan, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vidma, did know, Tava, your, Deva, O Lord, Chikirshitam, wish for us to do, Krita, has been done, may, unto me, Anugraha, favor, Cha, and Iti, thus, Yat, which, Adhyaksha, the Supreme Ruler, Prabhashase, you say. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation, the sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. For even though you are the Supreme Ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. Translation, please repeat. The sages said, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, we are unable to know what you intend for us to do. For even though you are the Supreme Ruler of all, you speak in our favor as if we had done something good for you. Purport. The sages could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is above everyone, was speaking as if he were in the wrong. Therefore, it was difficult for them to understand the words of the Lord. They could understand, however, that the Lord was speaking in such a way just to show them his all-merciful favour. So, this is the first verse, Paul Kumaras is speaking, first of 10. It's 10 verses now. Following on from here was another 9 verses, them addressing the Lord. This is the first one. They've been struck by what the Lord has said. They've felt like they perhaps were in the wrong, but then the Lord has appeared and made them feel like they were doing something good for him. There's a couple of words here that stood out. Chikurshitam. Chikurshitam means wish for us to do what you wish for us to do. Wanting to know what it is that the Lord desires and what it is that he wants of them, because it's unclear to them what it is that the Lord wants. The sages are being referred to as Brahmin sages in the previous verse. The Lord speaks about the Lord speaks about just apologies everybody, I'm just a little bit, it's been a while since I gave class. Reading a lot, speaking a lot, but not used to being in front of everybody. It's a little bit of... Yeah, that's a good idea. I did read over the verse, and I did take down some points, so maybe I'll just go to... So the word a couple of words stood out. Anugraha is one. Anugraha means favour. Everybody ultimately seeks the favour of the Supreme Person. We don't always consciously aware that we're seeking the favour of the Lord. People usually chase money, usually chase facility in this world, but this is also a type of favour of the Lord. The favour of the Lord but bhakti can be executed without seeking the favour of the Lord, where you just, by your own endeavour, by your own efforts, you try to progress on the path of bhakti. But then you get to a point that no matter how much effort you put in, without the Lord's favour, it's hard to make further progress. It's hard for it to actually achieve the results of bhakti, purification of the heart, where that which is in the heart, dormant, becomes manifest again. Because that Krishna Prem is manifest in the heart, is unmanifest, lying dormant within the heart of every living being. But that it needs to be brought out again. Comparison is given to fire within wood. It's latent within the wood. And it can be brought out, and then the fire blazes from the wood. So bhakti is naturally, they're inherent. It's part of the soul. It's part of us. But to bring it out, we require effort, we require desire, we require our own our own efforts, but then we also require the favour of the Lord. So, the Lord's favour, without achieving the Lord's favour, we can't make any progress. And as we sing each morning in the prayers to the spiritual master, the favour of the spiritual master is how we get the favour of Krishna, by pleasing Krishna. Seed verses of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks about the devotees always being engaged in devotional service, always being engaged in him. Machchita madgata prana udayanta parasparam katayantastamam nityam tushanti charamanticha. Their lives are dedicated to my service, their thoughts are absorbed always in me. And they derive great satisfaction and bliss, always enlightening one another and conversing about me. The Lord says next how he reciprocates with them. He says, Tesham sattva yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenam upayanti te. He says, to those who are so engaged, he gives them the understanding. This is his favour. So the process of understanding Krishna, the process of developing our progress in bhakti, is not a one-step process. It's not that we achieve something in devotional service. It's like taking the same mentality of the material world. It's like taking it into spiritual life. The process of bhakti is about asking Krishna for help. Material energy causes us hardship, pain and difficulty. It's meant to bring us to the point of asking Krishna for help. In the same way, without that difficulty, we wouldn't need to call out to Krishna. If it was possible to achieve something in spiritual life, if it was possible to achieve success in spiritual life without Krishna's help, what would be the point anyway? What would be the point? Because the whole purpose of bhakti is to bring us again back into contact, back into that relationship with Krishna, where we're dependent upon Krishna, where we require Krishna's guidance and support. So bhakti is such that difficulties arise and we're forced to ask Krishna for help, forced to seek the favour of the Lord. Another word which stood out was chikirshittam. So chikirshittam means many different things. Chikirshittam means pastimes. Chikirshittam means decision, means endeavours, means the intention, what you wish for us to do, which is what we have here. Intended activities, plan, and desire. So the sages want to understand, first of all, what it is that the Lord is wanting of them. What does he want for them to do? His words at this stage are confusing to them. Because he's speaking as if he was in the wrong. He's speaking apologetically on behalf of the two gatekeepers. So this display of humility, the Lord understands, however, the Lord was speaking in such a humble way just to show them his all-merciful favour. So the Lord also, there's other instances where the Lord is displays a humble mood. I was thinking how in Bhagavad Gita there's more than one occasion where the words me matam means, there's different versions of it, in different verses, but it means that is my opinion. Now, when you think about it, if the Supreme Authority, Krishna's already establishes himself there, and Bhagavad Gita is the Supreme Authority. When the Supreme Authority says something and then says, that's my opinion, how are we to take that? Is it just like he has an opinion like I have an opinion? Is there a difference between Krishna's opinion and my opinion? So there is. Well, why is it that he's saying it? What does he say? It's something that's stumped me and baffled me. But there's certainly a display of humility. But he's also giving Arjuna that ultimately it's up to him. He's heard what it is that Krishna has said. Now do what you wish to do. Like he could just make emphatic statements. He could just dictate, this is the way it is, this is what you must do. But instead he says, that is my opinion. I think maybe if anyone has any points to discuss, it might be a good idea. Whilst I'm still getting into the swing of giving classes and things like that, it's a little help would be. Yeah.
And as you said, he could say the Bhagavad Gita like could be like those stones, those in the Christian tradition where God gives these stones to Moses. These are the laws you have to follow. There's no right way around it. But Krishna's sort of asking us to come forward. This is my opinion. Now do what you will. And also your point about Krishna being humble. I really like that point you brought out. That it's so amazing. The Supreme Lord, upon who the universes are just coming out of his breathing and what have you. But he takes a humble position. So that puts us in a very particular way, doesn't it? If the Supreme Lord manifests a humble position, then what does it say about our position?
Yeah, to make some people try to take the position of God or to become God. But what is God doing? In this instance, he's manifesting humility. It's not acting like those who would imitate God or become God, like Maharaj mentioned, or someone mentioned a couple of days ago, Paundraka. His audacious, his ostentatious display of being God was taken as a joke by the Lord. The first thing they did after they found out that he was making what did he do? He made statements about his divinity and that the Lord should hand over his symbols. And the first thing they did was laugh, because he's wearing everything on the outside. He's not really. I mean, he had paper mache arms or something like that. But yes, here the Lord is acting in a humble way, setting an example, and also giving instruction. So it's to follow the instruction of the Lord, to become godly, not to become God, by following the Lord's instruction. And the Lord seeks to take the position of the devotee. So when the highest manifestation of the Lord, Caitanya Mahaprabhu, has a desire to experience love for him from the perspective of the devotee, greatest of all devotees, Krishna, in the mood of Radharani. So if we examine, look at what it is that God wants to do, God wants to experience what's it like to be a devotee. So it seems then foolish to try to become God, when God himself wants to know what it's like to be a devotee of God. Everybody? Someone was going to ask.
I was going to comment on a line that I heard twice about the sages being unclear about what they were meant to do. And the two times you said that, it sparked my attention, because it was kind of heartening to hear that sages were also unclear about what Krishna wanted them to do.
Right.
And it opens up curiosity about how they handled that. But hearing this conversation about humility, Krishna being humble, it sounded like they were sort of kind of thrown by that humbleness and not knowing how to act or what Krishna wanted from them from that surprise response. So it's not a question, it's more a sharing and a curiosity.
Yeah, appreciate it. It says Navidma, Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas. The Vidma means did know. I was thinking about where I heard that again, Vidma, and I thought of this verse in Bhagavad Gita. I found it too. It says, Nachaitad Vidma Kataran no Guriyo Yadva Jayema Yadiva no Jayeyu Yan Eva Hatva Najijivishamas Tevastita Pramukhe Dhartarashtra. That Arjuna is saying he doesn't know. What doesn't he know? He doesn't know which is better, to conquer or to be conquered. So, as you're pointing out the sages in their confusion, and then it's sort of heartening to think that even the sages are experiencing some confusion, right? It's the Lord putting, because they are highly elevated, not the sort of people who would usually get confused. Arjuna as well, he was highly qualified, not just materially, he was a great warrior, the greatest of warriors, and spiritually also. He's a friend of Krishna. You don't get to be a friend of Krishna easily. So he's the eternal associate of the Lord. For him to become confused, for him to say he doesn't understand what to do, for him to put down his bow is unusual, not expected. And Krishna even says that. It's not expected of him. This kind of behavior is not expected. It's not Aryan. It's not befitting his heritage, both on his mother's side and his father's side. It's not Kshatriya Dharma. It's no way to behave. And for so many angles, so many off perspective. But yet we find Arjuna is saying like that. Achaitad Vidma, same word. We don't know. I don't understand what is the best thing to do. And these sages are also using that same Navayam Bhagavan Vidmas. We don't know. We're unable to know what you intend for us to do. It gives the opportunity, it lays a platform. Arjuna being put into confusion laid the platform for Bhagavad Gita to be spoken. Arjuna became the everyman so that we could receive that message. This world, without sun or moon or electricity or fire, by its nature this world is dark. And I don't recall directly reading it exactly, but we get up early in the morning before the sun comes up. And I've reflected sometimes that one of the benefits of getting up before the sun, when it's not very welcoming, it's cold, it's dark, it's not a very hospitable environment before the sun comes up. When the sun comes up, you feel a bit better. It brings life, you can see, you feel warm. But before that, it's dark, it's cold. So one of the benefits, it seems to me, getting up that time is that the shelter that we would usually take for granted, the shelter of the sun's warmth, the shelter of being able to see. We don't have even those basic things. And so at that time, when you're deprived of the most basic things that you take for granted during the course of a day, you can more feelingly call out for some shelter. So chant the names at that time, chant the Lord's names at that time. Then in that setting lends itself to greater need.
There's a greater feeling of, I'm cold, it's dark. I'd maybe rather be asleep, but it's a perfect time for spiritual activity, perfect time for calling out, for trying to connect with the Lord, because those usual things which give us comfort, they're not there. So how does that tie in with what we were saying before? I sort of lost my way there. You were saying that the sage's confusion, the material world is a place of confusion. It's the confusion which leads us to ask the question, what is going on? If everything was clear all the time, we would never come to the point, we would never be brought to the point of asking questions and then receiving blessings, the favour of the Lord in terms of the answers. It happens again and again. So many of the conversations, so many of the questions and answers that are going on within Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, with all the Shastras, is some great personality put into some difficulty and then asking questions, which leads then to Lord or his representative giving these answers, which then we all get to hear because they're recorded. So the sages, so it is heartening that these persons experience, because also for us, if our lives were going wonderfully, no difficulties at all, where's the impetus to stop and think, is this where I'm meant to be? Is this a permanent place? I mean, if life is good, you don't tend to ask those questions. You don't tend to feel any need. It's only when things get a little difficult that we start to wonder why does things have to be so difficult? Which then becomes an impetus to seeking answers to that. Why does difficulty exist at all? If every single living being doesn't want difficulty, wants to experience warmth and happiness and love and connection and all these things, then why does it even exist? The difficulty. Why does suffering exist if there's no single living being in existence who wants it? You wonder about what the basis of something is in terms of its existence when nobody wants it. Where does it come from? What's its purpose? Why do we have to suffer? One of the most fundamental questions. Because we would try to reconfigure things and try to restructure life in different ways in order to make it better, make it go away. You think that by my arrangements, my material arrangements, or maybe by the help of somebody, I can solve the problem. Solve the problems of suffering. But then it may go away for a little while, but then it reappears again. And then as we age in years, the difficulties seem to increase. Of course, we're not wrong in that sense. Bhagavad Gita, we get this understanding from the Shastras about the nature of this world is that there's the adhyatmika kleshas, the miseries brought about by the mind and body, adhibautik klesha, the miseries brought about by the living beings, and the adhidaivik klesha, the miseries brought about by nature, too hot, too cold, too wet, too dry. So the demigods, daivika. So the Shastras give us not just some reassurance about sufferings there, yes, and you'll be able to overcome it somehow or other. Shastras are giving us, first of all, a very comprehensive assessment of the nature of the difficulties. It categorizes them. Yes, you've got this kind of suffering, and this kind of suffering. So not only is it like acknowledging the fact that we experience difficulty from time to time, and as we get older it increases, it gives us specific categories. And then in between those we have so that we have old age, disease, so that in the structure of birth, old age, disease and death, we have these other 3 types of miseries. And of course no one likes to focus on them. Generally people think it's just a process, material life is just a process of avoiding those difficulties. But we don't know the art, we don't know the actual means. And if we actually were able to carefully examine, which is what Bhagavatam helps us do, carefully examine the nature of this life, that when you have such a structure, when we're bound by or conditioned by, this is where the term conditioned soul comes from. What are the conditions? They are the birth, death, old age and disease, because those conditions don't exist for the soul. The soul, which is what we are, according to Bhagavatam, according to Bhagavad Gita, doesn't experience birth, death, old age and disease. It's the very first things that Krishna is teaching in the beginning, 2nd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. So we don't encounter these things in our normal, natural condition. So they're impositions upon the soul. They are conditions imposed upon the soul. Now how do we remove such conditions then? Why are those conditions there? How do they come about? So this suffering brings us to the point of asking those questions. Because there is a dead-end quality of the material world. No matter how much progress, no matter how difficult it may be, no matter how easy it may feel at times, ultimately it is limited. Ultimately it has a dead end. Dead end. You cannot continue down that path. And the greatest of all materialists, your smiling is helping me relax, and the ideas and now things are starting to flow. Thank you. The greatest of all materialists, personalities that we're hearing about here, Hiranyakashipu, was very powerful. What's the first thing he wants to do? He wants to deal with, because he's intelligent in that sense. He's so intelligent that he can take over the running of the universe. He can overthrow the demigods who are responsible for some of the suffering and set up a structure where it's all happening with him as the head. It takes intelligence to pull that off. So what is his intelligence? If he wants to continue doing whatever he wants to do, which is the basis of materialism, do what I want to do when I want to do it. No hindrance, no conditions. So first of all, he wants to remove the most powerful condition, which is death, which is the very intelligent thing to do. Get rid of death, then you can continue to work. There's no interruption then. So what death and old age and disease represent to us is very formidable problems to our progress in life. So even if we are interested in material enjoyment, material happiness, it makes sense to understand bhakti, understand how this structure of this universe is, engage in devotional service. It's akama sarvakama va moksha kama udarati tibrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Verses like this, there's many like that. So it doesn't matter what you want. Akama, you don't have any desire. Akama. Sarvakama, you have all desire. So it's like covering both ends of the spectrum. You have no desire at all, you have all desires. You just want everything. Or mokshakam, which means you have desire to get out of this whole business. Liberation is your desire. It says that by all means, it means very powerfully, yajeta purusham param. You should worship the Supreme Personality. Because even if we desire material progress, we come up against these conditions, these impediments. which what do they represent? They represent interruptions to our progress. So certainly Hiranyakashipu, who was a powerful materialist, represented that death represented to him an impediment to his progress. Whatever he wanted to do was going to be affected by death, old age, disease. So doing something about them is key to progress even in material life, even if you don't care for the spiritual world, what's beyond this life, even if your only interest is in progressing here. Still, it's necessary to deal with these conditions, do something about them. So, for the materialist or for the spiritualist, spiritual knowledge is necessary, an understanding of what it is that causes us to be interrupted, disturbed in our progress of life. Ikshwaku Prabhu, you were taking some notes. Do you want to?
Well, the point is that it's quite interesting, as Emerald said, that the sages were also more confused.
Yeah.
They were not cleared, and then you pointed out that Arjuna similarly was confused. He expressed that in first chapter, and then in second chapter, when he presents his first sort of formal question to Krishna, what is best for me? Then he repeats it in chapter 3, then he repeats it in chapter 5, and then he continues asking. So, I mean, from their example, we can learn that if we are confused, then we need to keep asking until we are not confused. The Prabhupada says in a few purports, he uses the same word. He says the sages submitted. They were willing to accept. So sometimes we may be a little confused, but we wait until the class is over, or until the learning is over, or the lesson. And then we see how the devotees or how Krishna instruct us in different ways, directly or indirectly, and then we just try to do whatever Krishna expresses, that this is what I want. And because the confusion, I think it was between him accepting the mistake, shall we say, that Jai and Vijay committed. Yeah?
Yeah.
So
the confusion is that the Lord was speaking in such a way as it made them feel like he was saying that
he was on the wrong.
Yeah, that he was in the wrong and that they'd done something good.
Yeah. So, and because they felt, when Krishna appeared, they felt, maybe this wasn't the best thing to do. Because they felt angry. And Prabhupada explains that's a problem. Yeah, so, but at the end they understood this is the will of the Lord. And so that's the example, I think, that when Parikshit Maharaj also, when he received the curse by the Brahmana boy, Prabhupada repeatedly says that he could have counteracted. He had enough spiritual potency to counteract that. And he may have thought, well, I'm the emperor, I have a service to do, so I have to counteract this. But, it's like many times we read in the Bhagavatam that devotees go within. I mean, in the Gita, it's mentioned briefly, but in the Bhagavatam, it's more emphatically pointed out that devotees go within. Like when Srila Vyasadeva was confused, he went within, and then Narada Muni appeared. Parikshit Maharaj also went within, and then Sukadeva Goswami appeared. So Prabhupada says in the purports, when we are confused and we don't know what does this mean, we go within, and then Krishna manifests Guru or Chaitya Guru, Paramatma, or the devotees, and then we get our answer.
I was thinking, most of the world goes on with this conception that if there is such a thing as a supreme, then it's this formless, quality, no quality, void, maybe this power that's below everything. So, but if we jump over that line where the Supreme can't have qualities, can't have a personality, then suddenly we're in this ocean of Krishna's qualities, where he manifests so many different qualities, and we can spend the rest of a lifetime just exploring and relishing what Krishna, the qualities he has as the Supreme. As you're unpacking, like today, that he can be, the Supreme Lord can be humble. So many qualities that he has. But yeah, people sort of have this idea that for the Supreme to be personal, well, that's a little bit, maybe a bit primitive or something like that, to believe something. But actually, to think that the Supreme can be any less than what we are is offensive.
Yeah. Yeah, if we can possess the qualities of personhood and individuality, then in that way we're greater than the Supreme, then it means the Supreme is not the Supreme. It doesn't make sense. It only makes sense on a surface level. And that's what we hear, the nature of Brahman realization is, that it's this incomplete understanding. It's lacking other elements. Once those elements are there, and that's the blessing that, speaking in a broad context, that Srila Prabhupada has given us something which is complete. Just that the major attraction, the major significant thing about Bhagavad Gita, the thing about this bhakti process, is its completeness. Because there's many manifestations of wonderful things, but they're not complete. They don't give us a complete platform to exist upon. So Brahman realization is wondrous. There's so much to appreciate. Because it's lacking that completeness, then we can't stay there. Can't remain somewhere where we don't have what it is that we need. So if we understand that the soul, we, are Sat, Chit and Ananda, Brahman realization is manifesting the Sat feature. Paramatma realization is Sat and Chit. They say Brahmananda, they say there is some happiness in Brahman realization, right? It's not denied completely, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough to satisfy the soul, so therefore you can't remain there. That's the problem. It's not complete. It's not. We can't stay there. It's another place like being born in the material world, where you're going to be interrupted at some point by birth, by death, old age, and disease. At some point on that Brahman's platform, you're going to be interrupted by dissatisfaction, and you're going to have to shift again from that position. You cannot continue. You cannot continue with your progress, developing what it is that you're developing. The nature of what Prabhupada gave is that it's complete. We can get caught up in certain elements of it, but the opportunity is there for completeness. I think that's probably even more accurate. He did give something complete, but more accurately, he gave the opportunity for completeness. Because it's up to us whether we want to gain the favour of the Lord, gain access to that completeness, but it's there. For many, it may be enough just to be relieved of the misery, of the difficulties. Misery is a strong word. We don't like to think of our lives as being miserable. It's not a nice thing to acknowledge or to accept. Yeah, my life is miserable. But the difficulties are there, without doubt. And for some, coming to bhakti, it may be just enough just to feel some relief from the constant difficulties. But then beyond that, once you feel that relief is, the sensation of relief is now not enough. Now I need how can I then go beyond? I'm not suffering so much anymore, but what more is there? The blessing of bhakti is that, the blessings of what Srila Prabhupada's given is that everything is there beyond that point. It's not that we have to now go somewhere else to find what is beyond the relief of material suffering, material difficulty. The appreciation of that, I think, is a very for me anyway, it's been a very nice thing to arrive at that idea that what is it so wonderful about, because people will say other books are wonderful, the Bible is wonderful, I Ching is wonderful, people have, and there may be some truth to that there's some very nice points, there's some very nice something to be gained from these things, but so what is the unique wonderfulness of what Srila Prabhupada has given? What is the unique wonderfulness of the Bhagavad Gita and the philosophy and bhakti itself? What is that? Unique wonderfulness is in its completeness. Just from that perspective of people comparing things. The opportunity for completeness. Oh, Hare Krishna.
So the nature of the material world, like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Dukkhalayam Shashvatam, temporary and full of suffering, so it's the inherent nature of the material world. And Yudhisthira Maharaj, we hear, he's asked, what is the most amazing thing? And that is that people see their fathers, grandfathers, great-grandfathers dying, but they think it's not going to happen to them. And Srila Prabhupada is taught that for a devotee, a spiritualist, then suffering in the material world, he sees it as an impetus to become serious about his spiritual life and make a solution to the problems. Well, I guess my question is, if Krishna's created this temporary situation full of suffering as an impetus for the conditioned souls to, wake up and get out of it and ask questions, then why do we see that still, even despite people suffering, 24 hours a day, it's not like they're just getting a little bit of suffering, a couple of days of their life, it's every minute, every day of their life. Still people are not asking questions, why am I suffering? What is the purpose of life? How to get out of this world? How can we see that 99.9% of the population, especially in Kali Yuga, still not seeking solutions or asking questions despite this suffering condition?
We can also be in that category, that we can fit into more than one category. But it's an opportunity. All it represents is an opportunity, and we can avoid that opportunity or we can take the opportunity. And how much advantage of the opportunity we take is also up to us. So all that we've been given is, that's why I think it was better than saying Prabhupada gave us complete. What he gave us was complete. He gave us the opportunity of complete. The opportunity to avoid difficulty and suffering is also there. But that's the pure devotional service. One of the symptoms, the first symptom of pure devotional service, right? Complete absence of material suffering. The nectar of devotion. First thing, absence of material misery. But it's only when the bhakti is in its pure form. Bhakti in a mixed form is less potent. It's not the best of examples, but when you're talking to people in general, I've sometimes used the example of alcohol. Alcohol, when people talk about getting together and meeting up, they talk about often they want to meet up and have a drink. And the effects of the alcohol, they don't just mean water, they don't just mean fruit juice. When they say let's have a drink, they mean alcohol. And why alcohol? Because alcohol has a certain effect. Whatever it is, for different people it's different things. So it's the effect of the alcohol that they desire. But then alcohol is very unpalatable. It's horrible to, when people try to have just straight alcohol, you see the look on their face when they do it. Yeah, it's really strong. So what people generally do then, because they want the effect of the alcohol but they can't stand the taste, so they mix it with something. So then there's orange juice or whatever mixer you put in. So what happens then is it becomes more palatable, but at the same time it's not as potent. So the more you mix the alcohol, the less potent it becomes, but the more palatable it is, maybe, at that. So then bhakti, just to get off the example of the alcohol, if it's mixed with other things, sometimes we feel like, oh, that tastes better, I like it better that way, when it's mixed with something else. But then it doesn't have the same potency. So the effect that it has to put the end to all material suffering is only there when bhakti is in its pure form. But if you mix it, if bhakti is mixed with other things, so the tendency to mix, we're being encouraged to resist that tendency to mix, not to mix bhakti with other things. It may not taste so great in the beginning, initially. Bhakti maybe seems a little bit dry. We should be mixing something with it to make it taste better. But in the end, it'll be more potent if we don't mix. And this is also demystifies what pure bhakti is. What is pure devotional service? What does it mean to be a pure devotee? Is it something unattainable, something that only certain rare individuals that are not me have and can have? Or is it a very practical thing, that all pure bhakti means is bhakti which is not mixed with anything else? It's just bhakti by itself, only bhakti. That distinction I found helpful. That resist the tendency to mix bhakti, because then you can experience what bhakti actually is in its pure, potent, in its full potency. And so then, because you use the analogy of something which is familiar to people, alcohol, then you can appreciate that, okay, that makes sense. Not mixing. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.